This is the story of a Julie throughout her high school life. You may know her as the goody two-shoes who paints all over everything she sees, wears fairy wings on occasion, trips over her own two pigeon feet, and carries around an oversized ukulele she actually named. It's like she's on shrooms, but she's too afraid to take even an Advil. Well, that awkward girl is me. Hi. I've been a lot of things the past 4 years, but let's begin with Chapter 1. The awkward freshman year of horrible hippie fashion choices. So, I get that as a 13-year-old freshman, you're allowed to be a little awkward, a little off on your judgments, and a bit oblivious on how to gain social acceptance. But I made Sheldon Cooper look like the coolest kid on the block. For whatever reason, I thought it was okay to wear an ugly skirt over an uglier skirt over the ugliest possible pair of khaki cargo pants, paired with 3 layers of hippy-dippy tops and the gaudiest peace sign leather necklaces I could find at Claire's. And always a hat. I had over 50 of them, after all, one of which I knitted to look like a cupcake. And no, I'm not kidding. I used my crazy outfits to tell people who I was, since I was so shy my own reflection gave me anxiety. Well, I mean, that and the blue eyeshadow, but I'm not sure what I thought an obnoxious outfit and mute personality was going to earn me socially, but what it did give me was a wonderful ability to filter out the nice people from the assholes. I immediately found myself alone. I didn't play a sport, I was the only kid from my school, and for whatever reason, people avoided me like the plague. It was then I realized that cupcake hats were not the best ticket to a social life. However, I still had one thing. One beautiful, shimmering asset that would be my ticket out of my social rut. And that was my art. I was so excited to discover other artists that I could fangirl over Warhol with, have intense debates over acrylics versus oils, and meet a cute artist boy whose muse I could be. But the cliques broke off. The jocks, the nerds, the douches, the do-gooders, the badasses, the populars, and I found myself alone. The only artist. Great. So instead of using the paintbrush as a compass to find me friends, I used it as a twirling baton to lead a movement of potential artists towards a splatter-painted victory. A dictator's whip I could use to beat some self-expression into the school, because damn it, I was gonna get some creativity on the walls if I was gonna be looking at them for 4 years. So I submitted to the quill and landed 3 spots, one of which was the Lower Division Poetry Award, joined the newspaper staff as the first cartoonist, designed posters for the Spring Pops concert, became BFFs with Miss Wolf and desperately tried to keep the Visual Arts Society alive, spoiler alert, it died, and was commissioned by the deans to create an SI-themed painting which you can find in their office. That year I had Mr. Z for music appreciation, and for his class I created my first ever video animation about Randy Newman, which I was so proud of at the time, but looking back now, wow, what a piece of crap. I also had Miss Denning for Honors English, the radiant woman who would become my mentor and best friend for the next 4 years. For her class I made my second animation ever about Pygmalion, in color this time and with 200 individually drawn pictures. Again, a piece of crap. I also discovered that I have a condition called synesthesia, which is where your senses are blended. In my case, I see letters, numbers, and music in color, which I assumed was the case with all human beings, but apparently it's not. Oh, and I was also diagnosed with ADHD, which was determined during the testing my mom had me go through after I announced how the letter B was the same color as Claire de Lune. After that, everything made a lot more sense. Chapter 2. The slightly less awkward sophomore year of tutus, friends, and the goth phase. Sophomore year began with my identity being ripped away from me, and it happened on September 2nd, 2011. LOL JK, I don't remember the actual date, but it was a day of tragedy. A day of such abomination and gut-wrenching wrong, it made the ban on gay marriage look justified. It was the day where the deans called me into their office and told me that I wasn't allowed to wear hats anymore. I'm gonna be honest, I walked out of there and started bawling. Seriously? I had worn a hat every single day for the past year, and I had the hat hair to prove it, and now it was over? Just like that? Well, I wasn't gonna stand for that. I spent about a month creating a super embarrassing art-laden video arguing for hats to be allowed at school. Yes, I'm dead serious. And then I screened it live to Mr. Ruff and the deans. Long story short, it didn't work out. Despite my unfortunate hat withdrawal, I actually managed to find some friends. I had my pals from the Peninsula Bus of Hell. I would have drawn it there, but it never actually came. I had Ella Pressure, the most beautiful, creative, and empathetic human being ever to grace the earth, and this was the year I found my other half, Connor Carrion. Connor was my cool yet awkward, artistic, not afraid to be himself musical twin I had spent a year looking for, and we clicked more than an angry businessman with a frozen Windows computer. He introduced me to bubblegoth fashion, which I quickly adopted. I swapped my cringe-worthy hippie clothes for some slightly less cringe-worthy tutus and ridiculously frilly dresses and chokers. However, the problem was that it was kind of hard to find giant Victorian gowns at Forever 21, so I got into sewing. I pumped out crazy dress after crazy dress, paired with the perfect hat and... oh, right. That year I landed in Mr. Devine's class, where I gagged through Othello, slept through most of Grapes of Wrath, and animated my way through The Chosen. Yet another video that I now see as a piece of crap. A small piece, but a piece. Oh, and don't forget the analytical Snow White poem video I made, which actually wasn't so crappy until my computer crashed and garbled the entire thing permanently. Shortly after that vomit-inducing malfunction came another vomit-inducing event on Tuesday, January 31st, when norovirus struck the entire school. And I actually do remember that date because that was doomsday for the girl terrified of germs. From that day forward, chicken and kale was no longer my favorite dinner. I submitted to the quill again, landing 4 spots this time, one of which was the cover. I won a couple art contests Miss Wolf entered me in, continued cartoons for the paper. Life was good until summer approached, and I decided to drop a few pounds for swimsuit season. And what began as a simple diet quickly escalated into something much bigger. Chapter 3. The sad junior year of jeers, tears, and skinny hell. I spent the summer cutting calories, starting with banning sweets and ending with banning, well, everything. Workouts jumped from 20 minutes to 2 hours, thoughts of food began consuming every minute of my day, and I began to really hate my reflection. And that's when I noticed there was something there that was more than just a diet. By the time I went back to school, I had been diagnosed with anorexia, the SI world oblivious. That year I spent almost all of my time in 2 places. First was the annex room in the 400 building, a place almost no one knew about, so it was empty and quiet all the time. I would come down here when I needed to eat something because I could do it without anyone seeing me, and when I wasn't eating, I was down there anyway because I felt too ugly to face people. I also hid in the bathroom by weekend, which no one knew existed, and sink to the cold tile floor and just cry my eyes out. No one would hear me or walk in, so it was perfect. By the time October rolled around, things had progressed to the point where I was eating next to nothing, having regular panic attacks, my hair was falling out, and my health had deteriorated to a life-threatening status. I stopped talking to friends, stopped doing all assignments, stopped caring about life. I wanted everything to stop.
Now we're going to move on to the hot new diet trend in
5 days require no willpower.
It's the hottest new trend for shedding those extra lbs fast.
She's getting like so unbelievably
Talking about that highly desired gap between a woman's thighs.
Happy birthday, Julie!
Happy sweet 16, Julie.
hungry, Mama. I'm hungry.
Control.
You look fine.
Control. It's called the fast diet.
Some are going to dangerous lengths to get it.
Lost almost 4 pounds after 2 weeks of doing the fast diet.
What's the matter?
Control.
Now let's talk about this new diet.
I'm so hungry I could eat a whole elephant.
And then, one day, I snapped. I snapped in a dramatic, hopeless, despairing explosion of bottled-up emotion that deemed I was no longer fit to be at school. Thank God. So I was admitted to Cielo House Eating Disorder Recovery Clinic, where I met several other people who had their own eating disorders, and we went through hell together. My first day at Cielo House, I had to eat a fully loaded turkey sub-sandwich, which was more like a Thanksgiving turkey to me. To add insult to injury, every Wednesday was challenge food day at Cielo, where we had to eat all kinds of scary things. And it all helped to some degree, but I hated it. I hated eating, and I hated having no control, and I hated missing my life, my real life back at school. One day, when it was time for lunch, another damn calorie-loaded lunch I wasn't damn hungry for, I pretended I needed to call my mom outside, and I made a break for it. I sprinted like I've never sprinted before in my life, relishing over how many calories I was burning, and ended up in a park, crouched behind some bushes. My plan was to stay there forever. Never having to eat a single sandwich again. Never having to eat anything again. It was gonna be great. And it would have worked, too, if the damn nutritionist didn't happen to be walking by. After that, I was pulled out of Cielo because apparently it's not exactly legal to run away from a facility like that. So I spent the next month at home, getting a little bit better with the help of my mom and some antidepressants. I cut my hair because most of it had fallen out and went back to school in January as a nervous, still anorexic, but much happier person. I reconnected with friends, although I still ate in solitude in the annex. The bathroom by weekend was no longer visited. Instead, I found refuge in the warm atmosphere of Miss Denning's room, surrounded by the creative people who dwelled there and posters of strong mythological women. I submitted to the quill again, got in 3 pieces, designed the junior prom ticket, continued cartoons for the paper, and had my film selected as a finalist for the Ocean Film Festival contest via Mr. Gamble's multimedia class. And I was asked to fill the giant white wall in the annex with, quote, some art. Oh my God. Chapter 4. The happy senior year of added pounds, epiphanies, and people. I spent the summer painting a giant triptych to fill the giant white wall in the annex, and it's hanging there now, a giant rainbow representation of the music department at SI. My schedule was freaking awesome. I dropped math, science, and language, which left all electives. I got Devine and Denning again, my 2 favorite teachers, and found another favorite teacher in psychology class. I was part of a carpool where I got to know 4 fantastic new people. Again, life was great, but at the same time, I still had anorexia. Granted, I could actually eat in front of people now, and I could skip a workout without feeling guilty, but I couldn't stop counting calories. I couldn't eat scary foods. I had a year's worth of rage built up inside of me from the restrictive, demeaning, self-destructive torment anorexia dragged me through, and in a furious act of determination, I decided I wanted out. I knew what I had to do. It started with a shopping trip to Whole Foods, where my mom let me roam the store and pick out anything I wanted. For the first time, I picked up items that looked good to me, and put them in the cart without checking the calories or ingredients. Peanut butter, trail mix, brownie bars, pizza, cinnamon bread, veggie burgers, dark chocolate ravioli, and even cheesecake, the sugary, cream-loaded mother of all caloric desserts, came home and filled the pantry. For the first time in over a year, my day was not influenced by what I ate or what I weighed. I trashed the scale and I ate whatever I wanted, however much I wanted, whenever I wanted, and it was the most liberating, thrilling experience since Great America. That is, until I stepped on the scale 2 weeks later. 10 pounds. I gained 10 pounds, and I just about went catatonic. My plan was to hide in my room for the rest of eternity, burning pictures of cheesecakes. But then, an epiphany happened. A year and a half of starving, of hating, of clutching my flesh with trembling claws, restricting and starving, running, punishing, shrinking, screaming, dying. For what? So I could fit into the clothes in the kids section? I had tried so hard to make myself look like a child because I wanted to be a child. But I was 17. It was time to grow up, and for the first time ever, I was ready. And then, it was gone. There were no more obsessive thoughts, no urges to punish or restrict. I was free. I was free. I spent the next few months rediscovering foods I hadn't touched in over a year, all of which reappeared as a nice layer of insulation. Anorexia was gone, and she took all self-doubts and negative feelings with her. Suddenly, I had this new sense of happiness, which confused the hell out of me because I was fat as ever, yet I found I had the confidence to do things a Julie never would have had the guts to do. I celebrated this dawn of a new era with a haircut, which turned into an awkward haircut, which turned into a really awkward haircut. I wrote a love letter to the boy I've been crushing on since freshman year. I actually talked to human beings I'd never met before, which worked out so much better since I wasn't wearing a cupcake hat. After publicly admitting to having an eating disorder, people are suddenly really nice to you. I created a presentation on my anorexia story and presented it in psych class for a project, then for the other psych classes, then for the sophomore class. I sort of unintentionally became the ambassador for eating disorders at the school. But I wanted something more. After anorexia, I was filled with an overwhelming urge to help people who were going through what I went through, people who thought they were worthless or ugly or hated themselves because I knew what it was like. One Tuesday night, I posted a video addressing insecurities, the first video of a series called Tuesday Talkin' Types, created to help the SI community open up and know that they are not alone. I didn't expect anything to happen, but to my surprise, the response was huge. Scores of people every week stepped forward and publicly admitted their fears, struggles, compliments for other people. This came with dozens of private messages every week from students expressing their gratitude and confessing their current struggles. Clearly, help was needed at SI. So I came up with the idea for the Elephant Panel. I teamed up with SOS and launched an event for students to get up and publicly share their stories of strength. I submitted to the quill one more time and got in 4 pieces with an honorable mention, was interviewed and featured in Genesis magazine, designed the senior prom ticket, drew caricatures for SI Live, and painted a portrait of Jesus in front of the whole school at the last prayer service. And that brings us to today. I'm graduating in a couple weeks, but I'm skipping over college and jumping straight into what I want to do. I'm writing and drawing a picture book about understanding eating disorders and how to beat them, hopefully to be published for my 18th birthday this September. I have a handful of commissions lined up for over the summer, an ever-growing YouTube channel with animations and original songs featuring Barry, my ukulele, and a noggin filled to the brim with ideas to show the world. Maybe I'll work at Pixar, maybe I'll be a voice actor or a filmmaker, director, singer and songwriter, designer, illustrator, public speaker, poet, writer, or Disney princess. Hopefully all of them. I walked in here having no clue where to go in life, but now I know what work needs to be done, and SI gave me the guts to do it. I'll see you in the future.